Hi, this is Jill from Fabric Garden, and we are ready to start the Quilted Witch. So many of you have already picked up your kits. There's still a few of you who need to pick up your kits, but we are ready to get started. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the pattern and about the first couple of blocks. So the book splits this quilt into 16 sections plus finishing. So we're just going to work it from front to back, but because you have a whole kit and you have your whole pattern, you could start cutting and labeling and putting your pieces in little baggies by the month. Lori Holt projects often have a lot of cutting, so the first couple blocks are pretty easy to cut, but as we move on, we're making multiple of the same type of blocks with multiple colorways. So if you've got some extra time and you want to cut ahead, that's a good idea. So really, the main technique in this quilt is the folded corner. So every month you are going to be making pieces with the folded corner technique. So I really am not going to make a full-on demonstration video every month because I would be making 9 of the exact same videos. So today I'm going to talk about the folded corner and how I like to approach it. But what I will do is for each section, I will, on our blog, and if you're participating with us, you'll get an email with a link, but on our blog, I will put a full color picture of the fabrics that are being used in that block or blocks. And if I have some little tips and tricks, I will write that and with a picture. If I see a technique that I think needs a video, then I will do another video. But there will be a blog post with color pictures and any explanations for all 16 sections of the quilt. So I wanted to talk about folded corners. So folded corners are a technique where you draw a line from corner to corner, you stitch on that line, and then that piece gets folded up to make a unit. So this is a technique that has a lot of room for imperfection. In other words, it is not a technique that always comes out perfectly, but I want to share some tips that could help you get a good outcome. So first off, I want to talk about drawing your line. So I'm going to put a little square here, and you want to use something that has a fine point. So if the fabric is light enough, I will just use a mechanical pencil because that has a nice fine point. Or you could use a fine point friction pen or something like a sew line pencil. Just avoid anything that is thick, because then where do you sew? In the middle, on either side. So we're going to draw a line from corner to corner, and you really do want it to be from corner to corner. So if I place my ruler so it is exactly on the point, when I draw, I'm actually going to be not drawing from point to point. So I just move my ruler over just a thread or two so that I can now see the point, so that when I draw this line, it is going from the point to the point, not a little offset. The next thing that happens is you sew on the line, and I don't know if you can really see it. Carol will try to get up close for me. But you can see here is my line, and my stitching is actually like a thread towards the corner. I am not really sewing exactly on top of that line. if I do, when I fold it over, it's not going to match up. So I like to sew a thread towards the corner I'm folding towards. Now, how much you sew that direction has to do with how thick the thread is that you're using. So if you're using a 60 weight thread, it's just a thread over. If you're sewing with a 50 weight, it might be a smidge more. But you might have to do a couple to decide where you really like to sew. Now, the pattern always tells you sew on the line and then trim off this quarter and press. I like to do that in reverse. I like to sew on the line, then I like to press it up, and I like to inspect how well did I do. So here's two examples. I just did these this morning. This one, when I flip it over, there's nothing sticking out, and I can see that it has folded up almost perfectly with this background rectangle. So once I know that I like it, I'll come back, fold that back, and then I'll go ahead and take my rotary cutter, oh, there's one, and I will trim the 1/4 inch, and that is good. Now here's one that I sewed, and you can see, if you look closely, this top piece is not meeting up with the original rectangle. So I really didn't get a very good do on that. So, and you can see I really did sew really right on the line. That's why it didn't. So at this point, I have to make a decision. So there's 3 things I can do. I could rip it out and sew it again, and if it were really bad, I would do that. And this one is really not very good, so I probably will rip out this and sew it again. The other option would be just to cut out this middle piece, because this red rectangle is the size it needs to be. So if I just cut out this middle piece, I know that it's going to match up and sew in well. The other option would be just to go for it. Go ahead, trim it off, and when I sew it to other pieces, know that I'm not going to line this up with the other pieces. That's a pretty iffy technique. You can end up with a wonky block doing that. So on this one, it's not very close. I'm going to rip it and re-sew it. But you could, if you didn't want to rip out, just cut this piece. I call this cutting the meat out of the sandwich. I leave the top, I leave the bottom, and I think you could see better if I tuck that one over. You can see my piece really didn't fold up and match. And that's the downside to the folded corner method, is it doesn't always fold up and match for you. But if you cut an accurate square, draw your line from corner to corner, and stitch a thread towards the corner, a thread or two, and you may want to test it out until you know what's a good spot for your machine and your thread. You will get a good outcome. Okay, so we're back, glasses off. So almost every month you will be doing this folded corner. So, you know, it's really good to, before you get going here, practice and see where it is you want to sew. Right on the line, I like to sew a thread or two off the line. That's what works for me. And I have gotten block 1 made. There it is. I didn't finish making block 2 because I wanted to save some little pieces to talk about, but that is block 1. So you will receive an email each time. We're just not going to really worry about timeline. We are just going to keep plugging away at our quilt and post on our blog each time we are done. So you may start seeing once a week or every other week a post on our blog, and you will get an email. So thank you so much for joining us. I think this is going to be really cute. I love the colors. I love the quilt. And of course, if you ever have any questions or you're struggling with something, feel free to give the shop a call, 916-483-2955. Trying not to give you my home number. So anyway, thanks for joining us, and you will be hearing from us regularly. Thank you.